Manhattan Neighborhood Network, in partnership with the League of Women Voters of New York, the Amsterdam News, and the Gotham Gazette, are pleased to bring you one of the candidates running in the Democratic primary on September 12th in Council District 10. The winner will be the Democratic nominee for that seat in the general election. I'm Elinor Tatum, publisher and editor-in-chief of the New York Amsterdam News. District 10 represents the neighborhoods of Washington Heights, Inwood, and Marble Hill. The Democratic candidate joining us today is Josue Perez. The incumbent, Yadanis Rodriguez, could not be with us today. Thank you for being here. So let's jump right into this. Okay. What are your specific qualifications for this seat and for this community that you serve? What will be your first order of business?
First of all, thank you for the invitation and having me to the race to represent. That's what I'm looking for, to represent my district. My qualifications are very simple. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up in this neighborhood, Washington Heights, and I also been working actively with my community. I'm a teacher for over 16 years, actively engaging with our students in programs that could benefit them for a better future. For example, because of the work we put in, we were able to bring computers programs, technology to our school. And I was able to also make sure that those programs in other schools were implemented. As a city council, I'm going to make sure that all those technology programs are put in place in our district. Only 60% rate of our students are college ready. So that's one of the big problems that I'm going to tackle once I get into the district, education, because I'm a math teacher for 16 years. I'm also a UFT delegate, and I work with many other nonprofit organizations trying to serve our community. And I think it's time that we change our representation. Just like the name of the program says, I want to represent my community. And the only candidate here representing our District 10, and that's what I will do, always represent our community.
All right, so your first order of business will be trying to change the education system in some way or another.
Let me be more specific a little bit about it. My priority is education, number one, but we also have concerns on our conditions at the moment, which also have to be dealt with automatically, or right we need to get into office, which is the affordable housing issues we have in our district and the rezoning, okay? So because rezoning is going to happen, as is happening all over New York City, and we have a plan of rezoning our district, which is the community was left out. The plan was there, implemented, this is the rezoning, and our elected officials have refused to talk to the community members. So many local organizations have emailed them, tried to call them, and they get no response. So this plan will just bring a lot of luxury apartment, and what they call affordable housing is not really affordable.
So what will you do as the representative to help make it affordable for working families? Because rents are increasing faster than the rest of the city in your district. That's
very specific. One of the things or the proposition I was looking at is to make sure maybe the rent, that would be a tough one to get about. Rent is one of the tough issues that we have to face. If we could get the rent to increase at the cost of living, it would be a plus. Secondly, we have to keep the rent apartment that are already controlled and stabilized. We got to make sure we don't lose them. But if we bring more luxury apartment to our district, that's going to increase what is called a market rate at the whole city. Secondly, we need to define what is market rate. The market rate, as it is determined by mostly the landlords, but what is market rate or affordable for our neighborhood is not really. So we have to redesign what is really a market rate apartment.
Well, is it market rate that you have to redecide, or we have to redefine what is affordable?
We have to redefine both. For example, let me tell you a little bit of information.
Well, market is what the market will bear. Affordable
exactly.
is what people can afford.
There would be both, exactly, because the marketable rate, a lot of the developer themselves will decide what's market rate, which is not fair. Okay.
Well, I mean, people will pay what people will pay, but you were talking about what the people that are in the community can pay. And so redefining that is what you're actually talking about, correct?
Both. For example, what's affordable? Since we're part of Manhattan, we're together with the median income in Manhattan. But we know that the neighbors, as you mentioned, Washington Heights, Inwood, Marble Hill, we're not a level with the rest of the city. So a $50,000 is not affordable market or affordable housing for us. So we have to lower what's affordable for our district.
Okay, so now one of the things that's also going on in this city and around the country is there's discrimination, and you've seen it everywhere. As a representative for your district, what do you believe your role would be to discourage discrimination against marginalized communities such as immigrants, Muslims, LGBTQ individuals, and people of color in general?
Great. First of all, let me tell you that as a member of National Commission on Human Rights, which is an organization which has been working to defend the rights of all constituents, not only in the city, but internationally. First of all, what we could do is the people whose rights are being abused, we had to protect them. And we had to defend those who need the help. Let me be specific. A lot of the person whose rights are being abused or violated, they don't know how to defend it. So we have to provide the help for them to defend it. Also, we had to be able to let them know to those people that are violating the rights. Like, for example, as it happened recently, we know that it's a hate problem that we're having in the city and nationwide. So we have to make sure that those cases are public, and that anyone that is trying to use hateful terms or is going to use demeanors in any race, color, or sexual preference, we got to make sure we have to let them know that as New York City and as a nation, they're going to stand by, and they're going to be reprimanded for that.
So will you actually be speaking out yourself against these things, or will you just be telling people how to speak out for themselves?
Well, the best thing would be to do both.
Okay.
Okay. Look for representation for the people that are being abused, but also speaking out myself.
All right.
As a local elected official, your voice is heard over sometimes. I'm working with the city. New York City sometimes has been doing a great job, or demanding or pulling out there when it is abuse. So we had to continue working that. Anytime there's an abuse when our condition, and a lot of sometimes abuse go under the scene, you don't see it. So we got to make sure people know where abuse is happening.
All right. So very recently, the mayor has called for a 90-day review of all the statues and monuments in the city that in some way may suggest hate or division or racism or anti-Semitism. Would you support the removal of controversial figures from city parks and public areas?
First of all, one of the things I want to know, what's the commission that's reviewing this, okay? Who is in the commission? How they're going to determine what is hateful or not? And it's a very touchy issue because it's going all the way back. So how will you know, or how can you classify what's hateful or not? So we have to be very specific, and it's a line that we don't want to cross, because if we go way back, almost everyone that was in contact with or supported slave, we have a very specific problem that the community, the Dominican community I represent, because one of the statues that being mentioned is our father, Juan Pablo Duarte, and he's been looking at to be if it's removed. But no one in our community look at Duarte as a hateful person or someone that was abusive of the slave or anything like that. So we had to make a fine line of what is a hateful symbol. As it is, I totally agree with the Stand and Leave statue because people were using it as a symbol for hate. So for me, my base concern at the moment would be, are the people using those statues as a hate symbol? If they're not using it and it's not controversial, I have to see what's going on after that.
All right. So let's go on to another topic. Let's go on to police and violence in our city. What is your view on the relationship between the police precincts and the neighborhoods that they serve in your district? And how would you improve police-community relations?
Right. So we've been doing, our district, the police district, is trying to do community outreach. They have programs. They just did one recently. So, but it's happened like once a year. So I will make sure that happens more often. We have to make sure that the police have a better communication with our constituents in the district. As local elected officials, we have to have a way better relationship with the local precinct than NYPD as it is. There's not a good relationship with the local elected officials and the police officers. I have a lot of friends that are police officers that do a great job, fantastic job. And they need to get there. They need to get more involved. But we also, as a community, need to get more involved there. In my office, I would love to have a group of volunteers that work with the community and the youth. Because sometimes the youth will see the police already as it's portraying on the news as the abuse of power. We had to change that perspective. The police are there to protect us, and we had to have a better relationship with them. I think having a volunteer program that is a bridge between the police and the youth, going to the parks, having more of those fairs where the community and the police officer come to your neighborhood would be as a start for that to happen.
So you just mentioned the youth. And what would you do to help to curb youth violence in the community?
This is one of, and based on my platform, one of the things we need to do is create more programs for the youth. Because we know like we have issues in our district where the parks are crowded with youth, where they're basically hanging, making a lot of noise. We have a big problem with noise in our district. But if we tell them to, let's say, do something productive, what are they going to do? Once again, education, programs for the youth. The rezoning is also trying to take down a couple of libraries in our district. For the contrary, we need to create more programs in the libraries where the youth could go, more after-school programs, more summer school programs that would could participate. As a teacher, I know that students this day love technology. So we need to be more technology classes, courses, when they get involved. Let's open the schools that are closed during the summers and having the opportunity to come in and participate in something productive.
Well, how will that be funded?
Oh, we have to demand more funding for our school, basically, because we know I know as a youth team member, the funding for school is going down. And a lot of schools, if they don't have a good number or rate, the budget go down. For me, it should be the contrary. If you have like a good rate, a low rate, you have to get more funding.
Right, but where is that money going to come from? Because it has to come from somewhere, so what's going to get cut?
Or we have an $84 billion budget, and I think a lot of those funding could be implemented in our district. For example, it could also come from the state. It doesn't have to be reliable for the city, because we know that the state owes $50 million to our school and our district. $50 million. So if we put pressure and that money to come in, then we could have more funding for our school.
So they've been working on putting pressure on the state to get that funding for years.
Quite a while, yeah.
Yeah, and so are you going to do something differently to get pressure on the state to get that money?
Yes, exactly, because one of the things I'm going to do is not being friendly with the IDC, which is like Independent Democratic Conference, which is one of the main reasons that money hasn't get to our district or the city. We can't be endorsing IDC members or people that are not putting the budget into the youth and the education. We have to look at the budget. The budget is a big part of when you're doing legislation. I cannot tell you exactly where am I going to cut the funding, but there's some places that the funding could come down and education should put in. There's millions and millions of dollars put in Vision Zero, which is a great program. But I would prefer to lower the budget on the Vision Zero and put more in this school. So there's a lot of places we could take budget and make budget cut and increase in our school.
So another big issue in your district is the joblessness, 20% unemployment rate. Many residents, especially youth, need access to opportunities and quality jobs. How would you work to meet those needs of the residents who are unemployed or seeking well-paying jobs in District 10?
Exactly. One of the main programs we have in our district is that the programs that the city provide, either our residents don't know about them or they are not in our district. Okay, CUNY in the High is providing a GED program, okay, but most of our district don't know about them, and it's small. So we have to create more programs like that when you guys, with the contingent resident get trained are either low cost or for free. That could come in out of the budget from my office, or we have to come in or time to implement or some of those projects that are in the city, try to make sure that we get an office or representation in our district. We have to guide them. There's so much training we could do with the residents in our district. And there's a lot of trainings also that the city provide. Once again, most of those trainings are downtown, but we have to make sure our residents know how can take the job market. Recently, we're going to have a job fair in our district. We could have way more job fair, but not every 4 years when election is coming. We have to have it constantly.
Now, how would you, talking about jobs, but how would you work to fill those empty storefronts and encourage the development of small businesses in your district?
Wow. That's a big problem we have, and rezoning is going to make it even worse, because if the market rate prices and the luxury apartment go into our district, you know that the storefront or the cost of the renting is going to go up. Okay, so what we're going to try to do is provide the small business the tools that they need to be successful. But there's a lot of there's programs for the small business, but a lot of the small business in our district don't know them. So we had to do an outreach to them. And as it is, the Manhattan Board of President is trying to work in legislation to see how can we control the rent of the business going up as such as skyrocketing to such a high level that nobody can afford it. So I will work one-on-one with the Manhattan Board of President or whoever needs to be done so we could pass legislation that protect the small business and provide resources for them.
All right. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
All right, so just let you know that I'm here to represent our community. Our community doesn't feel represented. Sometimes they have a lot of issues trying to communicate with the local elected officials. I'll be here to represent and to work with the community, local organizations and community members. Remember, September 12th is the election. If you vote for Josue Perez, you're going to have a representation for every and single one, all constituents in our district.
Thank you so much for being with us here today. I want to thank Democratic candidate Josue Perez for being here with us. The primary elections will be held on Tuesday, September 12th. For more information about voting, locating your poll site, and the candidates, you can visit the League of Women Voters website, lwvnyc.org. Please remember, only voters enrolled in the political party having a primary may vote in the primary election on September 12th. Again, thank you for watching Race to Represent on Manhattan Neighborhood Network. Goodbye.